So this is the 0810 hours GMT edition of the Khoodeelaar Television Channel Part B on Sunday, the 21st of January 2024. We're going to continue topically diagnosing the corrupt state of the United Kingdom and the corrupt state of the media and the hypocritical corruption of the media. The Sunday Times, owned, controlled by the dirty digger Rupert Murdoch, has got a number of items. The Sunday Times didn't live to see justice. So there is a picture, there is a gallery of photographs of post office scandal victims. And underneath that is the main item about the under 16s at risk of measles. A third of under 16s at risk of measles in the United Kingdom. And this, the Sunday Times describes as a legacy or the legacy of vaccination scares. Vaccination scares, of course, is a reference to the COVID-19, the height of COVID-19 and the scares spread by people who oppose vaccination. And the second item underneath that is a promotion of Donald Trump in the US. So this is continuing. The British media is continuing to promote the criminal Donald Trump. They don't regard anything at all is going to happen to stop him. They think that his crime is an achievement. It's the British press. The headline is, "In the land of the car, cheaper petrol could make Trump king." This is a piece by somebody called Louise Callahan, filing from Manchester in the USA, New Hampshire. And the last item on this front page of the Sunday Times is, of course, a continuance a ban of prayers imposed by the Sikh, S-I-K-H, Sikh fascist called Catherine Balbar Singh. She is, if there is to be comparison between Catherine Balbar Singh and Suella Ibila Cruella, then the two of them would have a strong contest as to which one is the more evil, the more cruel. So this is continuing. The British So the reading the paragraph, second paragraph by Sian Griffiths, education editor. The row erupted after a pupil at Michaela Community School in Wembley, northwest London, which has a secular ethos, started to pray in the playground during Ramadan in March last year. At the time, prayer mats were banned at the school. Praying was permitted, but no one had previously chosen to do so. The girl knelt on her blazer in the playground and was soon joined by about 30 other children at the school where about 50% of pupils are Muslim. An online petition demanding a prayer room was begun. As a result, Catherine Barbar Singh, the head famed for her rigorous approach, now that's a lie, to discipline and her pupils' impressive academic results, said the school's governors had decided on a prayer ban. Last week, the pupil, known only as TTT, began legal action against the ban in the High Court, claiming discrimination. Speaking to a newspaper for the first time since the legal action began, Barbal Singh, 50, said she wanted to run a cohesive, multicultural school in which children of all faiths could mix and be friends. She said otherwise, you end up with schools where Black African Caribbean kids stick with their own, Muslim kids stick with their own, and so on. That does not help a multicultural society to succeed. During the February last year, she said a teacher had had a brick thrown through a window at home, and another had an attempted break in. Members of staff were fearful of catching public transport because of the risk of being attacked while on their own, so started car sharing to get to work. So there is an interview on page 5 with Catherine Balbar Singh, which I am not going to go into, because that introduction is enough. Now, there are other contentious items in the same edition of the London Times. There's a piece about the Norwich story, where the two children among the 4 found dead in a house are pictured. Now, Norfolk Constabulary has referred itself to the independent watchdog after it, that is Norfolk Constabulary, that is the police, failed to respond to a 999 emergency call from a house where 4 people were found dead on Friday. The body of a 45-year-old man who has been named locally as Bartholomew Kuczynski was found at a property in Costersea near Norwich, along with the bodies of 2 young girls believed to be his daughters and a woman, 36, after police officers forced entry at 7:15 a.m. Now, who murdered children is yet to be established, but they obviously were murdered. Did the 36-year-old woman murder them, or did the man murder them? Because there was a phone call from him to the police, which the police ignored. Now, where can you place the emphasis about this. These two children could have been saved. These two children could and should and must have been saved, and yet they were allowed to be murdered. And the police admit now that they failed to respond to the emergency 999 call. Where do you begin? Except to say that the height of deadly negligence over the safety of children, innocent children, can only be compared with the height of hatred aimed at baby angel Geronimo by the evilness called DEFRA. That is accepted. Now, will those criminals who actually condoned the DEFRA attacks on baby angel Geronimo, including Ian Pissoff, the private lie editor I have discussed in the last edition, or Dominic Lyson, the son of Nigel Lyson, or Keir Starmer, will they, if asked about these two children in Norwich being allowed to be murdered, will they endorse the fact that these children were murdered? 12-year-old girl and her younger sister, should they have been allowed to be murdered in Norwich? And they have been, according to the police's own admission, they have been allowed to be murdered by the police neglecting the 999 call for help. Now, what did they neglect? What was happening at the time that the 999 call was made? Was the murderer so obviously ready to murder these two children visible to the person who called the police? It must have been. And that could have been the only desperate last minute opportunity that the person, whoever it was that called the police, saw in the situation to save these two children. Neglecting children and neglecting the safeguarding the children duty, as I have said, is widely practiced as part of the dominant culture in the local councils right across England. And this happened in Norwich, in England. So we shall be talking about the culture of accepting cruelty, serious risk of serious damage and harm and detriment to children like these two that have been murdered in Norwich and found murdered on Friday, 2 days ago. And there is this item, we shall come back to the Martin Bashir item. There is this promotion, full page promotion by the Sunday Times, one by the writer who said that Trump is on the way to win the election, and another is Justin Webb, is a BBC employee who was a reporter from the USA for several years, and is a right-winger himself. And he's already concluding that Joe Biden has lost the election to Donald Trump. Well, the fact is that it is possible that Joe Biden may lose the election, whether it's Donald Trump, the candidate for Republicans, or Donald Trump as an independent, because it is not quite clear in what position, in terms of party affiliation, Trump will be allowed to declare himself a candidate as. But the British media have obviously concluded that Trump is already elected, even before it has been known that the Republicans in the USA have accepted Donald Trump as the candidate for their party at the election in November. Now, the other item, of course, the opposite page, is a picture of this Catherine Balbar Singh, who is making the capital. It's a crusade because 50% of the population, population in her school are Muslim, which is absolutely a very significant proportion of children coming from the Muslim background. And that is what seems to be driving her, because she knows that Britain tolerates incitement to hatred against Muslims, violence against Muslims, and there is a narrative in every main decision-making organization and institution where discrimination against Muslims is not only allowed but is encouraged. And the fact that she has already got a UK government's kind of honor, so-called, means that she has already been put in place as a recognized, acceptable extension of the British state crusade against Muslims. That's the only way that she has been treated, because she is the head of the crusades, and it puts a diversity element into the crusade matrix, and she is the kind of poster girl, let's say, for the anti-Muslim crusaders in Britain. So that's the background. And the item by Sian Griffiths reads, speaking after her prayer ban, Rao ended up in court. Her teacher, Catherine Balwar Singh, says her rules promote social harmony and she won't back down. Now, we'll come back to that in a minute. If there is a similar situation somewhere else in England where the majority, let's say, of children in a school are Jewish and the head teacher is Muslim, and the head teacher imposes de facto ban on the Jewish children doing the religious prayers, it is impossible to think, unthinkable. Now, continuing the political kind of coverage of the post office scandal, there is this three-faced image that has got Ed Davey, the Lib Dems, and Rishi Sunak as the Conservatives leader, of course. And then on the right is nasty Nigel Farage. There is no way that the Sunday Times has got this right, because the Sunday Times is politically messing up the whole thing, the facts, and is not getting it factually correct. We shall come back to this issue later. Those who have died post official So we shall be talking about the BBC license fee. The main issue evident in the license fee scandal is that the BBC persecutes alleged license fee non-payers. In secret, there is no legal support, legal representation for most of the people who are prosecuted by the BBC. And the BBC is not part of the judiciary. The BBC is not part of the police. So why on earth is this allowed to happen in the first place? And there is another piece about the police neglecting, a deadly neglect. The 2-year-old lived in a basement flat on Alfred Avenue in the heart of a seaside town, just yards from the beach. Yet, despite repeated alerts from social workers over 14 days, nobody came to his aid after his father, 60, died. Police were 2 minutes' drive away while Bronson starved. This boy is called Bronson. Now on an icy cold afternoon last week, evidence of Bronson Battersby is desperately short-lived lay scattered around the backyard of the home he shared with his father, Kenneth, a street away from the amusement arcades and rides of Skegness Beach. Next to a toddler's trike and a blue Thomas the Tank Engine table were bouquets of flowers paying tribute to the 2-year-old boy who starved to death after his father suffered a fatal heart attack. Bronson was last seen alive by a neighbor on Boxing Day. When a social worker finally entered the basement flat 14 days later, the child was found curled up, clinging to his father's leg. The tragedy happened just a 2-minute drive from the nearest police station. Now, what can you say? This is why the Baby Angel Geronimo manifesto for animals and society is absolutely vital. And we are updating this with this event. That is what we are doing. We are doing, with every update, we are using the latest evidence of the failure, the neglect, the cruelty, and heartlessness of these state agencies, including the police. So we shall be continuing on this theme for indefinite period. And there is another story about the police. This is from the USA, Los Angeles. And the heading says, "A gunman in a wetsuit abducted my girlfriend. Police blamed us." So the cruelty to the people who most desperately need help and the cruelty by the police is absolutely brazen. And here is another piece, long piece, in the Sunday Times on page 16, in the news review section about the post office. Prosecutors said Postmaster Robin Garbat stole money, then panicked and murdered his partner. But campaigners in his village say evidence from his bosses is unreliable, writes Rosie Kinchin. So there is a lot of items in the Sunday Times today about this post office scandal, police scandal, and the BBC scandal. And Dominic Lawson, remember Lawson who mocked baby angel Geronimo about the same time in 2021 that Ian Pissoff mocked baby angel Geronimo. He's writing about the criminally bad use for 150 spare judges. Now let's see what he's talking about. Amazing. You wait ages for one judge to come along, and then 150 arrive at once. I'm thinking of the announcement last week by the government that this many new judges would be allowed to the upper tribunal to deal with the appeals from those arriving here from France in boats, whom it intends to send to Rwanda. Alex Chok, the Justice Secretary and Lord Chancellor, declared that new judges will be appointed, trained, and start sitting from this summer. If the government can rustle up an extra 150 judges to expedite the hearings of boat people appealing against being flown off to Rwanda, to impress a bunch of recalcitrant conservative MPs before a sticky parliamentary vote, they might just consider the real crisis in our courts. But sadly, they are under no political pressure to do that. So it won't happen. What he's talking about is that the Rwanda thing and the availability of 150 judges is out of all proportion and it's completely corrupt. He's not saying it is corrupt. The word corrupt doesn't occur. But that's what it is. So the judiciary is totally being abused and manipulated for purposes that have nothing to do with seeking redress or giving justice or giving the benefit of justice to the victims of injustice at any stage whatsoever. And the behavior of the courts is also contained in a reference in the editorial item. BBC does not have a license to bully the viewers. He says efficiency is important in our courts, that is, courts of law. But fairness is more so. The scales must be tipped appropriately, and the BBC should urgently re examine its collection tactics. Otherwise, calls to decriminalize not paying the license fee will only grow. Now, the question of judicial role and the court's role, again, is at the heart of what the High Court judges Griffiths and Murray did against BabyAngel Geronimo. They lied and they said that evidence does not matter, facts does not matter, that the government minister, the Secretary of State, can do anything the Secretary of State wants to do. So that is the latest update on the need to have the BabyAngel Geronimo Manifesto for animals and society. We shall be continuing with other evidence as we move forward with research and investigation.